honor. Thank you. Shay. Arigato. How are you? I walked in earlier here, I heard Alan speaking, and I noticed how very quiet and gentle and polite you were being, and I hope you're not going to be that way with me. Are you feeling good this morning? Good. It's really a privilege to be back here. I haven't been back here since 2004, so almost 3 years. And during those 3 years, I've done a lot of living, and as you have, I'm sure, and lived a lot of different experiences. So I'm excited today to share with you some distinctions that I know can make a difference in the quality of your life. Huge difference. And that's not making an exaggeration. But anything I'm going to tell you is going to be a total waste of your time if you just sit and listen to me passively. How many of you have ever gone to a seminar or a university or an educational environment and you learned something and you knew it was really valuable, you believed it was valuable, no one was selling you on it, you knew it was important, you were excited about what you learned, and then you never actually applied what you did in any way? How many have ever done this before? Say aye. How many have done this more than once in your life? Say aye. How many still feel intelligent? Say aye. So one thing that I've learned over the years, and I start every seminar the same way no matter what the subject is that in order for you and I to get something that's valuable out of this day, out of this time, we're going to have to activate our minds and bodies. If we sit passively as we learn, even if we're enjoying what we're learning, we don't retain it. We may retain it intellectually, we may have our notes from it, but we don't actually follow through. So the first thing I want to say is I'm excited to be here, but I'm also challenged. Because some of you, how many have ever been to a seminar of mine before? I'm curious. Wow, well, welcome back. Well, the shortest seminar I usually do is 50 hours, 50. We literally do a weekend of total immersion. And the reason I do that is because, you know, if you just hear something and it goes in and out of your head, it's interesting. But what I like to do is condition people so you build muscle, so you actually follow through. So here we've got about 3 hours. It's a very short period of time, but my excitement is I think I've got a format for you that'll really work. But for it to work, you're going to have to really engage your body. So a couple things are important. Research shows that if you sit and listen to me passively, within 4 weeks you'll remember less than 10% of what I said. And that's not because you don't have a good memory, it's just because the information, you're going through so much of your life with so much stimulation, it doesn't get retained. If you take that information and you just write it down, and nothing else, even if you never read the notes again, you'll retain about 30 or 40% of what you heard. Because the physical act of writing it down makes you draw the grooves deeper of what you've learned. And if you can physically activate your body while you're learning, if you can yell back the answers, if you can engage your nervous system, then you retain about 85 to 90% of what you've heard. So I really want to make sure you came here, you get what you came here for. So I'm going to ask you to do something that in the beginning might feel a little different, which is to be much more animated in your response. And the reason for that is, you know, if all of us in this room have had a problem, and that is we all went to a 20th century school. In a 20th century school, you were basically being trained to be educated for a 20th century job, which in those days was an industrialized job, right? So what happened when you went to school? The bell rang and you got trained. Even as a little kid, when the bell rings, what do? Report to your desk, your chair. And when you get there, what are you supposed to do? Sit down there and shut up. Don't talk to your neighbor. Don't do anything until someone tells you what to do. Well, today we live in the 21st century. As corny as that may sound, and if today you sit and you're in business and you don't talk to your neighbor, you're out of business. If you wait for someone to tell you what to do, someone else is going to be succeeding and you're going to be waiting. How many would agree with me on this? Say aye. So what I'm going to ask you to do is be much more active today, much more aggressive. When I was a kid, I was a talker, so I got in trouble. I remember I was in school and I had this one teacher that loved silence. So we'd have these periods, he said, there's no talking at all in class. And I'd be talking to my friend. And he used to assign me, I used to get in trouble, so he'd give me these assignments. A 10,000 word essay I would have to write, why I will not talk again in class. I wrote 6 of these 10,000 word essays, it didn't work. I remember I had my 10-year high school reunion. And I got to the reunion, and there were 5 of my teachers there, one of them was that teacher. And I went up to him and I said, look, this talking thing worked out pretty good for me. So the mindset of using our bodies and using our voices is what I want you to get geared up for. Because if you're sitting here right now, and let's say you're sitting passively. When you're in school, how did you sit usually? In a peak learning state. And if you're sitting here right now while I'm speaking, and even if you're enjoying yourself, but you're in a passive state, the state of mind you're in gets linked to what you're learning. So if you could be sitting here and going, wow, I'm excited about this program, even though you're calm, Or you might be saying, man, he has giant teeth. I've never seen teeth that big before. Whatever you're saying, if you're in a casual state, a quiet state, you're going to have that information kind of come in and out. And later on, even if you've enjoyed it, you go, yeah, I really think I should do this. I should follow through. I should make this happen. Because you're passive. I'm going to ask you to become active. And the way we're going to do that is a couple ways. If I ask you a question, I'm going to ask, if you will, that you yell back the answer. Not so we have a bunch of positive thinking here, because I don't just believe in positive thinking. I believe in intelligence. I believe in seeing things as they are and not lying to yourself. I believe seeing things as they are but not making it worse than it is, which is what most people do so they don't have to try. And I believe in seeing it better than it is, and how do you close that gap? But to do it, you first got to activate yourself. So all those willing to use your body, and when I ask a question, yell back the answer, say I. Oh, no, that was not very good at all. Do you understand why? Because if you engage your body, the engagement of your body will bring your energy up. If your energy is higher, you'll retain it. And if you keep on doing this, in the beginning it feels kind of weird, especially in Asia for some people. But after a while, you'll start to see it feed you energy. And when you have the energy, you're going to follow through. How many came here because there's some area of your life you really want to improve or change or become more successful in? How many came today for that reason? Raise your hand and say, I. If that's true, then the biggest thing we're going to do is from thinking about it into doing. And the way to do that is train your body to be more active. I'll give you a good metaphor for this. If you really want to learn rapidly, if you really want to change your life, the way that you do this is you become more like a kid. Because kids instinctively do the things that make them learn very rapidly. And one of the things about a kid is they have a certain amount of energy before we teach them to calm down and be a certain way. Isn't it true? So kids, when they're learning like crazy. And they're willing to learn because they're not worried about failing. If a kid falls down, they get back up again. But adults, if we fall down, we look around and say, anybody see that? Nope, I'm never doing that shit again. As adults, what we have to do is engage ourselves more. So today, I'm going to ask you and invite you to decide right now for this couple hours to be really effective that you're going to do things differently than you have in the past. Because in the past, you went to a seminar or you went to an educated place and you got good information and you didn't use it all because you were passive. I'm going to ask you to change that. And so a way of thinking about that is you don't have to think about age in terms of energy. Energy is something that's more psychology than it is age. Some people are very old, but they're very young in heart, and they have tremendous energy. And you can tell how old somebody is by the way they move. Right? Do you ever watch a kid walk through the living room like this? They're walking along like this, dude, and all of a sudden they go, whoop! And they walk off for no reason right after it. Come on, who's ever done this when you're a kid? Raise your hand, say, "Hi, come on!" Well, see, you're willing to be playful, you're willing to do those things before the culture, any culture we're in, teaches us to get quiet and kind of fit in. But that doesn't allow you to use your spontaneity. So the way I'm looking at this is this. I don't care what age you are today, I want you to become a kid. Just for a couple hours. You can always go back to being an old fart later on if you want to. But I want you to just try being like a kid. And what makes you a kid is you're spontaneous, you want to try anything, you want to do anything, you go back and forth, you're not so passive. How many follow what I'm talking about here? Say, ah. Fantastic, thank you very much. Shay Shay. So, I'll give you a metaphor for this. When I turned 40 years old, I'll never forget, I had a couple of my friends that came to me and said, Tony, man, you go like crazy. You do these 50-hour programs, you know, athletes. You're like an athlete. You're always going, and you really should slow down. And, you know, some athletes retire around 40. And I thought, you're obviously the wrong people to spend time with. So I thought, I want to go interview people who have a different mindset. I want to interview people who are over the age of 65, and they're an extreme athlete. An extreme athlete is, they're doing things that 25-year-olds aren't doing at 65. So I spent a year interviewing people. And these people gave me a new standard for what was possible. I interviewed a woman who was 72 years old, and she is a nun, a Catholic nun. And her name is Sister Madonna. Now picture this, if you will. At the age of 40, she had never really exercised in her entire life. At 40, she decided she was going to walk. And she walked 1 block, and the next day 2 blocks. Within a year, she was running marathons. Now, from the age of 40 to the age of 72, when I interviewed her, she's run more than 350 triathlons, and she's done more than 35 Ironmen. Now, think about that. And most of those she's run in her 60s and above. She started running Ironmans when she was in her 60s. So at 72 years old, I'm interviewing this woman who's doing things that 30-year-olds can't do. So picture this. On her 72nd birthday, She flew to Hawaii because they're having this Ironman competition. If you're not familiar with the Ironman, you're basically running a marathon, swimming a couple miles in the ocean, and then getting on your bike for 100 miles. That's fairly intense for anybody, 25 years old, much less somebody who's 72 and female. So imagine you wake up on your 72nd birthday to celebrate, and you decide to start the morning by running a marathon, and then you go swim 2 miles plus, and then now you're on your bike. And imagine you're on your bike and you're going as hard as you can go, and you are passing 35-year-old men. Better yet, imagine you're the 35-year-old man that this 72-year-old woman is passing. Right? And so she gets, true story, she gets to mile whatever it was. I think it was like 65 with 100 miles. So she's 2/3 the way. She's almost there. And then the winds start picking up. And the winds in Hawaii, on the big island of Hawaii, it's a very desolate place because there's been all this volcanic activity and all the trees are gone, and so there's lots of wind. And the wind is coming up faster and faster against her, and she's pumping harder and harder. She's already run a marathon. She's already done her 2-mile swim. She's pumping on the bicycle. And the winds finally got up to 35 miles an hour. And she's just this little short person. You know, there's like 1.5 meters, 5'2", tiny little lady. And suddenly the winds hit 35 miles an hour, and she became the flying nun. It literally lifted her up and smashed her on the rocks. It broke her clavicle, broke her hip, cut her face open. They rushed her to the hospital. So the next year, the people on the committee that run the race said, we should put an age limit on this. Maybe no one over the age of 65. So she flew in to do the race again. They wouldn't let her sign up. So she just went and did it beside people without a number on her and completed the race. And as a result, they changed that. How's that for a great lady with some great courage? Give her a big hand. 112. She came tonight to walk on fire, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a big hand for 112. I'm honored to have you tonight. Her life is about giving. She's lived long enough to know that life is not about me. Life is about we. Life is not about what you get. Life ultimately is about what you give. If you succeed, if you achieve, if you make all your dreams happen, but you're still not happy, you're not fulfilled, you don't have a sense of meaning in your life, then you just experienced the ultimate failure that's ever existed in life. If you grow, then what's going to really fulfill you is to give what you've grown from. To give your experience, to give your insights, to give your love. To give the courage or faith you developed and help someone else have that as well. What makes us feel fulfilled and meaningful is we grow and we give. And so one of my goals this weekend for you is to help you discover the art of fulfillment for you.
I always have to prove myself all the time.
Okay, and now we know what it is. And when you feel like you have to prove yourself, you're afraid that you're not
good enough.
She has a belief system that she has to achieve to be worthy of love. Some fathers are very big-hearted people, but they don't show emotion, except rarely. And so she's seen that rarely. When she's achieved a huge amount, he's felt proud. This woman can change from depressed or from angry to playful to loving. She has a giant heart. She just wants to feel like she's enough. But her rules make it impossible. It's not her father's rules. It's hers. Right now, there are people suffering. There are people dying right now all over the world. And if you focus on all those people, you will suffer. Right now, there are children being born all over the world, and people are falling in love in this moment. There are men and women in this moment everywhere on the face of the earth that are falling in love with God, with each other, with their children. It's one of the most magical moments in the world right now for hundreds of millions of people. Whichever one you focus on, you're going to feel. So you could try something new. Try this. Bring your hands up like this. Give her a hand, ladies and gentlemen. And the fire walk is just that metaphor of a breakthrough where you get yourself to do something you once thought was difficult or impossible, and after doing it, you get the other side of the fire, your brain goes, damn, what I thought was so difficult is easy. Meaning equals emotion, and emotion equals your life. Every moment you're alive, my friends, every one of us in this room right now is making 3 decisions. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're making 3 decisions. The first decision you're making is what to focus on. Second decision is what does this mean?
Third decision is once you come up with a meaning, you're gonna have a feeling, you're gonna have an emotion, and so from that emotional state, you're gonna decide what to do. Are you gonna give up or move forward? Are you gonna blame somebody or are you gonna change something? Whatever you do is gonna shape your destiny. You are an incredible audience. You've given your all, my friends. I've had the privilege of traveling around the world now for 30-something years, and I can tell you that the amount of love and energy you've created here tonight is something I will never forget. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Good night, God bless, make your life a masterpiece.
We had a hell of a time here at the UPW, such a great time with so many transformations from so many different people from around the world. So I just wanted to send you kind of this highlight video as a kind of little gift to trigger some of the memories and also some of the learnings you've had so you take your life to the next level. I'll look forward to our paths crossing again sometime soon. Remember, live strong and live with passion. God bless.
I am Tony Robbins, and welcome to our Fijian island resort, Namale. It's a paradise here, and we're about to go on a journey together that'll include some time here in Fiji, some time in Hawaii at my Mastery University, and maybe a couple other places where I can share with you just a couple of tools that can help you increase the quality of your life. In just 45 minutes, we can't obviously give you a whole seminar because one little section is 3 or 4 hours, but I want to give you a little appetizer or two of some tools that can help you to, one, increase the quality of your communication. Because my personal belief is it doesn't matter what your goals are, your desires, ultimately your ability to achieve them and to be happy and to be fulfilled comes down to communication. And we all communicate well when we're in an unstressed state. But when we get stressed, we start developing patterns that stop us. So I want to make sure that in order to have that quality of life where you can really manage your life effectively, you learn just a couple of tools in that area. Secondly, if we're going to manage our life and really learn life management systems, we have to know our priorities. So we're going to do a little goal setting workshop. And you may have begun a part of that if you've already gone through the audio tapes of Personal Power, which I hope you've done, because that's ideal to go through before you go through this videotape. But if you haven't, then you can do it here with me on the videotape together. And I can tell you that this little process is something that's totally changed my life and an amazing number of other people. In fact, sometimes when you begin a process, you wonder, oh, is this really going to make any difference? You know, it seems so simple. But I can tell you that simple things, little things, aren't little at all if they are significant, if they're things that can shape our lives, if they can change the way we think, the way we believe, the way we act, and therefore what we experience in our lives. And that's what we're going to share with you on this tape. So again, you'll get a little peek of many different things, but I hope you'll take the time to not only watch passively, but to actively do some of the exercises. Because I can make a tape that just looks really fine, but instead I want to do something that you actually do. It's kind of like a live video workbook. So don't sit passively, do something, follow through, and I can promise you some amazing results, especially if you've really gone through Personal Power now for the 30 days. I can give you an idea. In the last week, I get to hear stories every day from people that have used Personal Power and made huge changes, or used portions of it even. In the last week, I had the privilege of visiting with a man who I met about a year ago, right after the President's State of the Union address. I kind of stayed in the background till a little after midnight, and then I decided to walk up the steps of the Capitol and stand there where the President is inaugurated and just see what it felt like up there for the person who was really making a difference in our country. And in the middle of the night, I see this man running up these stairs saying, "Are you Anthony Robbins?" And I said, "Yes." And he reached up and he grabbed my hand and he shook it. And he said, "My name is Bobby Rush." He said, "You know something? I'm a congressman today because of you." I said, you're kidding. And he said, no. And he shared with me how he went through personal power and he changed some of his most limiting beliefs. And he said at the time, he said he knew it was valuable, but he had no idea the cumulative effect that it was going to happen for him, that he started developing a new momentum. He set some brand new goals. He made some tough decisions. He broke through what would stop him, and now he's doing something that he really loves. And by the way, he said, by the way, I was an ex-Black Panther. Talk about a little change. Simultaneously this last week, I had the privilege of spending some time that reminded me of my goal-setting workshop. This workshop you're going through, I did for myself for the first time years ago in Russia, back in 1982. And a couple days ago, I got a chance to see how the world has changed by visiting with the president of the past Soviet Union, Mr. Gorbachev, and flying with him on my private plane for 4 hours. Talk about chills, thinking about what can happen by using these tools. And we started talking about what changed the world. And the interesting thing that he shared with me is he said the breakthrough, what took us from a place where we had 70,000 nuclear missiles pointing at each other, where people are constantly worrying if we're going to die or not, someone's going to push a button, people are practicing duck and cover. What wiped that out, what ended the Cold War, was two people communicating. He said what broke it all down is I knew Americans were beasts and you knew we were horrible. He said, but Ronald Reagan and I developed a relationship. And I tried to dig. I said, when did it happen? He said, well, at our first meeting in Geneva. And I said, well, what really did that? What was the first trigger of trust? He said, well, we were both on our side of the fence, arguing for our side. And at one point, he said, Ronald Reagan reached out to me and he said, listen, this is not working. Let me start fresh. My name is Ron. And he said, he reached out to shake my hand and say, may I call you Mikhail? And when he told me the story, he had this huge grin on his face. And I began to listen for 4 hours to all the tools that basically you're going to learn on this tape about quality communication and how it changes our lives, our businesses, our relationships, and literally how it changes the world. I'll give you one final example. Now, all I'm trying to do is not to impress you, but to impress upon you that if you'll follow through and do this, some miracles can happen. And I'm giving you some famous names because hopefully that'll grab your attention and you'll think this is real. I tell you about John Smith, you might not listen. But I'll give you one more. Michael Crichton, the writer. I was speaking with him earlier this week as well, and he said, I want to tell you, one late night I was frustrated. People have been calling me saying, how's it going? Which he said really means, where's our work? Where's the screenplay? And he said, I just didn't have any momentum. And he said, I watched the show and I thought, what the heck, I'll try this. And he got the personal power tapes, he said, and he listened. He said, I did the whole thing, all the way through. And he said, I knew that was important. I got this brand new momentum and this new passion, this new energy. And he said, as a result of that, he said, I started writing again. And everybody said my idea was stupid, that it had been done before, it was a waste of time. He said, but I got the thing done. And in the goal-setting workshop you're about to do in a few minutes, he said, I designed what I was going to get out of that, even how much money I'd earn off this particular screenplay. And he said, I wrote down a number that was so unrealistic. It was a number that I'd never gotten before. And he said, you know what? I sold it for exactly the amount I said that I wanted. He said, so I really owe you some thanks. I said, well, what screenplay was it? What book was it? He said, Jurassic Park, the best-selling movie of all time. He said, I guess I owe you a little thanks. I said, well, thanks, Michael. The point is, this process you're going to do is simple. I'm not going to try and pump you up. I'm going to try and give you little pieces, but it's up to you to follow through. So will you do that? Please do. Don't sit passively. Take some major action. And again, know that we're just going to give you pieces of things. At the end, we'll wrap up together. Make sure, though, that you follow through on the 30-day tapes, because this is your bonus. Those tapes are the basis of this change. And I hope as a result of these changes, you'll want to take yourself to a brand new level. So let's begin. Let's go to our first venue, and let's find out what are some of the tools that can truly change our lives.